Greetings, Ben Marie here with another edition of SaaS Metrics School. My voice is a little off today, a lot of meetings today, but want to talk retention and consumption-based revenue. This is a great question from a student in my course a couple weeks ago. And so, how do we calculate retention when we have consumption-based revenue? Of course, this can apply to any sort of variable revenue stream, consumption, transaction, processing, where we have no consistency. Rate times volume, not fixed subscription, MRR, or ARR. So how do we calculate retention? So the f- first thing I do is I always run my aggregate revenue retention schedule. So I take those MRR schedules for those variable revenue streams, put it in my revenue retention schedule, and see what the retention looks like on a customer basis, on a gross revenue basis, and on a net revenue basis. And from there, we can see trends or no trends or patterns in the data that tells us, okay, how should we approach this to figure out what kind of retention is this variable revenue telling us anything, any patterns that show we are moving in the long run up and to the right. You think about traditional fixed MRR, subscription-based revenue, right? Very easy to see on your P&L. Of course, if you have RevRec in place, that MRR every month is moving up and to the right, meaning it's increasing. But with variable revenue, it's a lot harder. So I've seen a lot of different variable revenue streams in SaaS businesses, and some pretty consistent, right? It is there, the ARPA or the average transaction value per customer is pretty consistent and it's growing. And then we can apply pretty much normal retention analysis on top of those variable revenue streams, but sometimes it's seasonal. It goes up in the summer, falls in the winter, vice versa, or maybe there are no patterns in the data. Then we have to look at a longer period of measurement. Then we need to look at year over year periods, because again, on a 12-month basis over the previous 12 months, we would expect that customer base to be increasing our revenue in those variable revenue buckets. So we can look at it on a longer period when doing aggregate revenue retention, or of course, we can do cohort analysis. So taking that cohort, if we have enough data from 24 months ago, and that same customer group from 24 months, what revenue did they generate in that 12-month period? What revenue did they generate in the trailing 12-month period? And compare those two data sets to see if the variable revenue is increasing. Because ultimately, right, we want that variable revenue to increase on a long-term basis year over year. Of course, this gets down to pricing models. If variable revenue or consumption revenue is only 10% of your revenue, total revenue, then, well, it's not a big focus and we may not see increases, but if it is material to revenue streams, then we've got to take a look at that. So again, we have to look at longer time periods, and then we can also look at cohort analysis. And then sometimes you hear month 13 retention, where that's looking at, all right, we acquired this customer group in January of last year. And then now fast forward to January of this year, that's month 13. And what's that month 13 retention? So a lot of different ways to look at it, but generally in a lot of SaaS metrics, period of measurement is so important here. So again, usually we're going to have to look at longer time periods to figure out if there are any patterns in the data with variable revenue streams. Thanks.